start with the introduction maybe a little bit. Is it recording? I hope so. Yes. Okay.
Yes, recording.
Okay. Welcome. Great to see you, Anupam. And I'm really happy about the opportunity to have some ongoing conversation, even with the, being in different places. And we have not, seen each other for a long time. Lots of things have happened since the last conversation in the book, which is now finally coming out. You have done a master in the UK and now returned to India. Maybe you can say a little bit also what you're working on now. And Ivan is not so much contributing, so I'm getting
Yeah. No, I just after I came back from UK, doing my did my second masters from De Montfort University, which was like I got a scholarship from Charles Wallace. So then after that, after I came back, that from that very beginning of like 2019 onwards, end of 2019, that's pharma movements was going on. Before it was a CA-NRC movement was going on. Then later the workers bill came, then EIA 2000 environmental impact assessment 2020 came. Lockdown in the parallel, the lockdown was going on. So this lot of things are like was happening. And when I came back, like that farmer protest was still in the move. So then I started joining there, and that's most of the time spending there. Then also we get to know that that because of the farmer movement, even people are like spreading misinformation and talking about not giving a proper propagating proper truth what is happening in the farmer side movement side. But also even though it is not that proper news, but still it's all are focused into the farmer movement. So but there are a lot of things happening outside that center of Delhi, like when we get to know that that Goa, for instance, was going to be a coal hub. So then I spent like more than a month there and to visit a lot of places and to meet a lot of activists and those who are part of this movement, like mostly Adani, Jindal, Vedanta. They are trying to make a coal hub in the Goa. It's like whole Goa. They're making a kind of sea routes to taking coal from Indonesia, Brazil, Australia, and to enter into India through the sea, and then we'll transport this coal which is not even kind of solid coal, which is dust coal, that they will transfer into through by road or then also by train, basically going to directly to the Karnataka Bellary hotspot, which is steel plant. So that's the whole plan. That plan is actually, if we talk in detail in later sometime, you will see that that is like very focused kind of long-term project that they're planning. And then later when we came back again, we joined into the Maharashtra, where different parts of India there's a lot of movements happening in solidarity with the farmers movement. Similarly, anti-fascist movement against BJP government. That Bengal election was happening that time in 2021. Then in February I came in Bengal again, then started working on this project against anti-BJP vote, to working as a campaigner, to working against those who are going to vote BJP, or to produce a kind of a campaign for that. So which is like there is a two kind of set of team which is like kind of collaborating each other, but they are separate. Like my party CPIM Liberation working separately for anti-BJP campaign, but also there is a no vote to BJP. There is also another campaign which is also popular campaign happened in Bengal. But finally, yeah, anyway, that's Trinamool Congress again won, and the BJP lost the seat in Bengal. But the government in Bengal is also like started taking land of Adivasis in the Uchapachami, which is the kind of going to be Asia's largest coal mine. And then and was second world's second largest coal mine resource that it's being located in the Uchapachami in Birbhum district, the district in West Bengal. So that is like a kind of governmental, government located that area, and then they try to try to accuse that land. So now working with those movement people from outside. My party is also engaged, but particularly this movement called Birbhum Bhumi Jibon Jibika O Prakriti Bachao Mahasabha in Bengali name. So Birbhum, land, life, work, and the nature. Save that, that kind of name. In the name where they organize themselves by the 34 villages. So we work with them, not like party has its separate kind of separate collaboration or anything like that, but this like people are engaging with them. Party is organizing different protest seminars in the city, because it is very far from the city Kolkata. So and I worked with them. Like that's what like my practice after I came back from UK. That's what I'm doing now, preparing for my solo show in Vadera Art Gallery in July. That will going to happen.
Wow, yeah. I mean, what I find particular in not only in your practice, but also in how you navigate this difficult field of activism and being an artist, very often is something that can be like abstract and too distant from the actual people, even when people say like they're working with communities. But then I think like what's really interesting is that it actually is like a daily organizing and action in your case, but at the same time you're producing what can be shown in a gallery, or now you're working on the with a skill set that also is informed by painting and does work in a gallery, if I remember the last images from your solo show. So maybe do you want to say something a little bit about this, how you deal with that from the the context of the actually daily life organizing the protests, and then what you decide to maybe show in the solo show?
See, that is like true. It's like kind of very living contradiction, like because such kind of activism that's mostly happening in India and elsewhere, everywhere in the world. There's this art activism and all. This is mostly very kind of parachute activism. They will fly and tuck, they will drop somewhere and do something and come back and then write a proposal on this and then get some money. They get the cultural capital and everything sort of thing. I'm not saying that I'm like totally outside of that kind of parachute activism, but my difference because I know this is parachute activism, so I try to differentiate myself from that sort of engagement, because I'm not a kind of individual artist in that way in terms of my activism, which I don't believe this word in activism, which is very NGOistic. But I'm a party cadre. I'm a party, activist. I'm a party worker who working with the party, with the organization, which is I'm not doing it alone, because even for instance the Uchapachami what Pol movement happening. If I am an individual, like a lot of individuals from West Bengal, they try to enter into that place, but they never get chance to enter, because sometimes the other state government, those who are in power, they didn't allow them, or neither the movement people, they help them to enter. But when I'm working as an kind of working with the party, and they have certain kind of association, they know how they are being how they are with that with their movement in solidarity. So then they have a kind of belief, they have a trust, so in that way I'm not that individual that going as an Anupam, as an artist who are going there and working. I'm an CPIML activist who or worker, party worker, who is working in the art field, in the cultural field, in the party, who is working with the movement. That is very different. When I actually, even in my last show in Project 88, or even in my show in New Museum Trinale, or any kind of sorts of this kind of mainstream space, I always trying to bring together the kind of my painting, my drawings, or my any kind of art objects, which is become a kind of a reference, which is always a reference, because these are displayed like a excess, which is not a singular art object, which the singular art object has single meaning, that carry with that object. So I'm trying to de-associate myself with that singular object. That is the kind of conscious choice, because this all movement, that's all works that I produce, it comes out of this observation that my whole time, my actual time in the daily, every day, that goes to engage with these movements, not in the as such art practice in that way. So my art practice and this engagement is not, I can't make separate. But in the gallery, which I know, which is very hegemonic, which has its own discourse, which has its own elitist agenda. So we also have to be conscious to being, how to separate ourselves from this too. So that is, I think, I don't have a very clear answer, but that's why I started with, it's a very living contradiction that we all need to deal with, because today the very idea of political art is totally being normalized and totally has been captured by the NGO practices. So so
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this is why I think I find or also why we're doing a conversation, because I think this is a very important point, to be constantly critical to how these because these are not set parameters. This we have to always like negotiate new in that setup, and that I think that also means that we use the word critical, but it actually means something practical, to see the differences in there, and to not deny it, to think that you can bring activism like one-to-one into the gallery and it is the same, because exactly like you say, this tendency or also dynamic of normalizing what can be defined as political art or maybe historicized, loses also the pin in that context. And I think that's what I find so special, that you're not denying this difference, and you're constantly like looking at exactly what defines the dynamics of that difference, and then you try to also work with it aesthetically, like in the compositions and in this maybe you can say a little bit more about this excess that I think is an interesting term, because we do, it has forms, and it has also, you have this like this mode of production that when I see the things in the outside, for example, I remember this bridge with the long slogan that I think you did in the residency in Switzerland, and then I saw the gallery show. So there was like they came from your hand, but they're completely differently defined in that space then. But this this word excess is kind of interesting.
Yeah, basically, see, there are like, apart from like, for instance, apart from my this kind of gallery or mainstream shows, I always also, most of my shows happen not in this kind of mainstream, so rather like I trying to kind of collaborate with the different spaces, which is not anyway connected with the mainstream art market or any sort of this, mostly collective spaces, like which I am one of the member in my village. There is a residency, which all Indian residency and most of the artist residency in India all are based in city. Then we have started like a residency in Bengal. For instance, there was a place in Kochi that the main discussion happened, which is came out in our Pandora's box, our interview, our discussion. That is also based on a very different place, not part of any gallery in that way, which is a very collective space. Or even in Bangalore, I did. So the idea of excess, in a way, it's also comes from the kind of what we said, what I call is representational impossibility. It's kind of because I come from a certain particular geographical location, particular caste, particular gender, which is in after like, these questions are very much very much in front of us, like, who has right, who is the real sufferer and who has the right to right to represent. So in that way, like in my whatever I understood, apart from giving analysis, but I understand that it is impossible to even even you as an born as a woman, you or like you identify yourself with some identity in terms of gender, but you can't also like represent the whole woman as an identity, because each and every woman has a different kind of location, geographical, caste, class, ethnicity, or like even that come from Western Indian, all of this Asian, that sort of thing. There are a lot of multiple layers in terms of when we talks about identity. There is nothing essential inside in it. So in that way, like we have to also understand that there is something called feelings, something called experience, something called observations, which is like for instance, giving an example, very simple and quite understandable, that when we started our art kind of academy, like when we started our classes in my graduation, the Bachelor of Fine Arts, then before joining, we started making sketches in the railway stations or go to the market, make sketches. In that time, we never thought that we have to make a perfect drawing, rather we trying to, whatever we observe, we quickly sketch. So, and that's become a like huge number of, like it's maybe 100, maybe 50. It is not only numerical, but it is multiple, because that's like multiple observation that you're trying to document, and that's create excess, which is not singular object or singular drawing that represents some particular person or particular observation that I have gone through. So it is like multiple things which is all our different observations comes together with this 50 drawings or 30 drawings or dot dot dot. So this is excess, which is excess of observation, which is not surplus, which is different than the capitalist mode of production, which is trying to produce surplus and surplus, but excess is like excess of emotion, excess of feelings, excess of expression, experience, that actually has the possibility to encounter this surplus, that destroying the whole system. So in that way, excess is important for me, as from where my caste location is, gender location is, that apart from like my privileged positions and all, I have also my own vulnerability, maybe, that also, like where are those can be placed into the art form, where is this self-reflectivity can be placed into the art form, and then if all these different observation, contradiction can come into the art object or in my practice, then if I display it in a certain way which is not singular, to point it like the audience can point it out a singular object in that manner, then it has a potentiality to become a reference, to become a background, to become a backdrop, as like my actual kind of my day-to-day engagement, which is making propaganda material for different movements, which is also a background. If I am making some background of some banner, which is all be back in the background when someone is giving a speech, or when it's become a background when that march is going on. So, or maybe it is in the forefront, but it is always background, it is always reference, because people are important there, people's voice are important there. In the similar way, when I organize and manage to make that kind of artwork not into the mainstream art galleries, but into the different kind of space, like one of that, like Kochi, which I did discussed in your interview, that kind of space where we can display our work, and then we can create a discursive space, make a discursive space, create performance, poetry performance, then discussion, panel discussion, a lot of things can be possible within that. Then it is not mere an exhibitory space, rather it's a more discursive space. And that's happened. We can go to the history of, even in Bengal, there are a lot of subaltern history which is actually creating discursive space. But this hegemonic discourse, even in the mainstream left or mainstream communist, whatever, no communist, but left, mainstream left or mainstream right wing or mainstream liberals, they always trying to make this spectacle. But not but for us, spectacle is like visibility, that somehow these banners and posters need to be visible because it is happening in the public. And when it comes to the gallery, again, it's a spectacle, or like in that way, like bigger drawing or things. It is actually also haunting, dominating certain way the viewer, because where the particular space I am working in, it is a particular class of people that I am engaging with. So it is need to be somehow have their privilege and my work's privilege have to be somehow confront each other, you know. But there are a lot of problem with the political art as such, because whenever we think that in the gallery space we work as a political artist, but you know, politics always leaves elsewhere. Because when you talks about caste, class, gender, and all of the politics, people will say, okay, yeah, that is fine. Yeah, that exploitation is happening, but not happening here in the gallery space. It is happening outside. It is elsewhere. This problems is elsewhere. So whatever you does in the gallery space, never this problem will solute, or never that any kind of overcome will come. So it is our task to certain way to understand that contradiction and to, you know, because end of the day, Susanne, we are also come from a working class background. You know, we also need to be, survive ourselves to continue our practice. So for that also you need certain kind of survival strategy to, you know, but I will not say that, you know, taking money from the capitalist and working with that, this kind of, falsification, the idea of falsified idea, I'm not entertained by. Yeah, anyway.
No, this is great. I mean, this is also, I'm always, you're also so precise in, in carving out these terms, like the impossibility of representation. I think is something that's like so important in political movements in general, but also in like how we navigate as artists when we do have things that we care and that we need to engage with in terms of geopolitics and in very locally specific struggles that have their own dynamics, and they need also a sort of they have a fragility that can be, destroyed or gets like unpolitical through certain cultural dynamics. So I think that is, it even seems to me like it's kind of like hacking into this system. It's not completely changing it, or like you say, falsifying it by being then creating another discourse, or by taking its power, and but it's more like something like hacking and trying to work with these restrictions from within. So that's thank you very much. I mean, do you want to say something more? But I think this is, especially that you managed to get these in sort of terms. And I know in the conversation in the book, for example, we've also been talking about theory and things, but it's very important that we as artists kind of define our own parts in the theory and also be critical to things that are maybe subsuming certain art into terms, but be clear about the things that actually have to do with the humans and the people involved.
Yeah, actually, I don't like a lot of people, those who are against theory, even in the art field, even in critical theories and all, like when people misusing the theories, just throwing the terms and, then that is a problem. I don't think that Roncière or Deleuze or even Agamben or anyone, or like Badiou, everyone in the part of their movement, and, they are also engaged with certain things, so, and out of that experience, they bring something into the theory. But when we are using just appropriating those theories, this is also another kind of appropriation. But also we need to know that there are a lot of, when we talk about Roncière and this and that also need to be understand that there are a lot of theoretician which is already being invisibilized by our own caste hierarchies, by our own gender hierarchies, that is already invisibilized throughout the history. So in that point, like how you are also using their theory, which is your caste or your gender privilege already invisibilized, but you may not, you personally individually may not done that, but historically something happened which is very precise. In that time, like you have to one have to like very specific, like when someone using, like for instance, if I am using Ambedkar, or if I am using today Somabhuta Chaudhary or Y.S. Salone, who are the kind of, Ambedkarite theoretician in Indian context, or like any black theoretician like Fred Morton or anyone that sort, when we are using their idea of UGTBT, or here we are idea of brokenness, in terms of explaining the working class subject, or the lower caste subject, or the black subject, then we also need to understand where our position is. When I go to the West UK, first time I realized, and okay, my skin is also black, and started I am acting like a colonizer. I came from a colonizer country, and a lot of Indians, those who comes from a similar like upper caste, male, that kind of heterosexual kind of places, they are also become a colonizer, come from a colonizer's country. They become a black skin or like brown skin, and they started behaving like they are also oppressed, but they are the oppressor in their own country. Yes. In the other hand, they are also oppressed, but they have to understand the difference, that oppression or this oppression. But that if you normalize these both oppression, then the problem starts. Similarly happen when we use theory and practice. I don't think that theory and practice, it's like a very Marxist terminology. It's like praxis, which is not only Marx, but from the very long time, like people are using this word praxis. And we all practitioners have to be like, it is not like, 20th century artist, like who will say like, I will draw and someone will talk about me. But there is a book called Artist in Writing, that from 12th century, 13th century, people are writing about their own work. There are a lot of artists who are writing about their own work. It is not today that happening. It's like today is a phenomena, but it's a lot of artists, they precisely mention how they draw, and in terms of political art, I don't believe that political art means that I am working about or with or on working class or about the oppression, but how you are working is the politics. In terms of general politics, in terms of the art politics, it is about politics is happen when how you do it. That's the methodology is a politics, but politics is not the content. Otherwise, Modi also came in the name of working class.
Yes.
Or Hitler also came in the name of working class. It is not different anyway.
Yes, and it really is about the how, which, with Pandora's box, I'm also trying to figure out, because it's the same with solidarity. Solidarity is used by the super right wing, and it's used in the art world in a very odd way. So you have to define where you are. That's why I like the form of conversation, because I am, in a way involved, and I have to make my own position in the conversation, because I'm relating to a content that, for example, the land relation in India, I have no clue about, right? I have to define my own terms for solidarity, but yeah.
But Susanne, see, when I saw your work, for instance, similarly, like it has a similar kind of thing, like, like if someone saw that your way of doing it, then people will term you as an activist. Sometimes they will term you as a scientific researcher. Sometimes they will talk about you as an ethnographer, But the thing is that when you work, I saw a few of your works, then or read something about you, then I saw that, or whenever we personally discuss about your practice, then also we saw that, that is the methodology that what you are following, maybe end of the day, you just made a tortoise, or maybe a land with the sand or something. Maybe it is not, or like maybe kind of animated, or kind of a geographical kind of cartographic or something, that sort of work, with the animation, with the 3D model or sort of things, which sounds like, if someone from our village or someone saw that will think, oh, or like a dominant leftist people, they will say, oh, this is very elitist approach of the art, but the point is that you don't know, like, what elitist means. Like, there are people are already talks about the IT workers, the new white collar workers and one side, but the artists who are working in the new media, you will think suddenly, you will say, they are out there, they are like more advanced, but they are very pro-elitist or pro-capitalist. It is not because of the how it is being represented, but they are missing the whole process. The word process is very much normalized even today. Everyone talks about process, but processes means like, it's not about how, it's the impossibility to actually conceptualize the process even, because how can you pointed out each and every thing, like archival is impossible, like archiving the process is impossible. But impossible means doesn't mean like like as it is kind of a very you are identifying limit, that what is the limit of it, then you try to overcome. And it is not a today's concept, it is very earlier, like Descartes talked about it, and a lot of people talks about it in the science, in the philosophy, and everywhere. And today also we are dealing with the similar kind of contradictions. So it is one hand the capitalist and this form of oppression, but on the same time that all movements happening in the world wise, it is also a lot of problems is there. It is not that is very romantic and out of any flaws. It also has its own flaws, own hegemonic discourse, own misunderstanding, misrepresentation, and a lot of other things. How, like for instance, how left being understand their own cultural practitioners. That is historical problem, like but in that case, like how we will deal with that, not only negotiate or reform, but rather to extend their if I believe in certain kind of politics, so that's what one can do. Otherwise, individually, it's nothing possible.
Yes, but that's that's really the point. I mean, like, the turtle cannot be seen on its own. It is, and it was shown in a particular context, and the turtle also comes from a special struggle around an island and fishing communities, where the turtle being safe and the turtle coming back, meaning that the community is well. So, but even there, I would totally agree, it doesn't represent this to everyone, and it can be completely read in a different and can be misunderstood. Like anything can be misunderstood. And maybe that's also why, Pandora's box is something about, like, you're trying to tangle something, but there's always this possibility of the box opens and a lot of difficult things come out, but also hope comes out.
Because this misunderstanding also has a potentiality of uncertainty, because art, if it is all certain, if all are prejudices, then why is there a need for making art or any sort of cultural artifact or any kind of discussion? Even there is no need. If I know everything in that way, and I have nothing to say with you, nothing to learn from you, nothing to, or even after you saw my work and you already know everything, then there is no need for then you can write a book or maybe too much bigger analysis, because there is always that uncertainty, then that some kind of unknowability, that thing is important. Because that is important thing is that you need to understand that you don't understand the other, you can't understand the other wholly, or holistically. So that you have to, then what you can do, that you can only identify that this unknowability, that I don't understand, this inability you can only represent if you can. Otherwise there is no possibility in terms of knowing the other. Even I can't understand my own mother, own father, own brother, own sister, even myself. But the truth is truth, certain way. The truth is truth. I know that something is happening wrong. So, but one point is something is not going to happen. What is happening is not wrong or not right. What is happening in India today in the name of this right-wing radical right-wing politics in terms of BJP, or even what happened throughout the 60 years in that time regime of Congress, or even in Bengal, like CPM, in Kerala in CPM, there are a lot of different parties also, somehow, being represented, even the working kind of Bahujan politics also being represented in Uttar Pradesh. So these are also, we need to see that what are the limits that they where they're stopped, the possibility. So in that way, like one can only through research, through understanding, through engagement, one only can do this. Otherwise, if I just reject Indian art fair, for instance, today this Indian art fair started in India, in Delhi. So that is actually supported by BMW and some co-partners is JSW, Jindal, and Jindal is taking land in Dhinkia in Odisha. And I'm like I'm totally with that movement. But the point is, my work is also in that Indian art fair. Like then you will say, Anupam, you are hypocrite that you are participating in there and also talking about that, like you are everywhere. That is maybe one critique, but also need to understand that if I just reject in a Delhi art fair which is organized by FICA, which they gave me an emerging artist award, for which through that award I get chance to went to Switzerland and get chance to meet you, and if I reject them, then I'll be rejected from all Delhi art circuit. Then where should I eat? Where will get the money? And if you say no, then go to work for some other, then those institutions are not exploitative. But the point is that we have to understand our impossibility, that to take choice. Choice is also create an alienation. Choice is not always given, for everyone.
Yes.
Choice is also certain kind of has a privilege. Choice is also has a politics. This too is a contradiction that we have to identify and to understand its problems and possibility and work. If there is a one day come and I can reject, I have rejected a lot of shows that sort of things, but I always see that Kochi Binale, you will never can enter into the Kerala art scene if you reject Kochi Binale. If you reject anything in Delhi, that sort of big shot, then you will be rejected from everywhere. And one thing, like those guy who is also working in the Indian art fair, in a sense of as a worker, as in working in the gallery and all, they also have their own limitation. We can't just make them as a villain.
Yeah.
Exactly. So before I was like too much passionate about my practice, and I was thinking that I am the only one who is radical. That is actually bullshit today. If you go to, and I am very much critical about Rax Media Collective, but I know that this is very personal, but I'm just telling to you that when
should I stop the recording?
Yeah, sorry.